Hello everybody, welcome back to Sprueverse, my scale model universe. People of Earth, welcome to part 2 of Build the Escape Pod from Star Wars, as seen in the Journal of the Wills. Now, when last we met, I was just beginning the detailing process on this incredible piece of history, and I do think it's incredible because, let's be honest, it's at the very, very top of Star Wars. It's how it launches the whole universe with our two incredibly wonderful droids, R2-D2 and C-3PO, of course, escape. Now, what I've been doing is some incredible research. I've been looking for donor part kits where I could, just because out of curiosity. Most of you who have not seen part 1, please go back and see it. It's a very in-depth discussion, and then we dive into the model. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to dive right in. But quickly, before we do, I've been doing some more in-depth research. And also, thank you to each and every one of my subscribers who sent me links to, well, it ultimately was the Golden Arbor page and Christoph's incredible how-to video, which is very helpful. But take a look. I've got 2 books in front of me. The first book I have is entitled Star Wars Chronicles. And it is an incredibly in-depth, very in-depth world. And of course we have Escape Pod. Here's the production model. And it's really wonderful to see this. And it talks about it in detail here. Sorry about the glare. There we go. It's a capital class starship equipped with escape pods for emergency evacuation of crew members. Though water and food rations are stored aboard, the pod's life support system is minimal and range is usually restricted to the nearest occupied planet. Obviously, R2-D2 and C-3PO escape from the Tantive 4 undetected after the crew launches decoy pods to simulate a short circuit or other malfunction. The pods float through space until a rescue mission is taken care of. Only minute directional adjustments are possible. And you can see the thrusters here, directional thrusters and its main engine system here and all of its detail. Here's some wonderful concept sketches from Joe Johnson of it in flight, along with, interestingly enough, these landing positions which never got used. But we've got some excellent details there. We also have them in this one, which of course is the go-to, Sculpting the Galaxy, or Sculpting a Galaxy by Lorne Peterson. And here we have, of course, wonderful details of the actual filming miniature. So we're going to be just fine. We're going to really be able to dial this in. So I'm very excited about that. Lots going on there. One of the things I told you I was doing is I was looking for the original donor part boxes. I was just curious to see if there was anything missing, or perhaps some of the details that came in my kit from Masterpiece models, which is no longer available. Perhaps, just perhaps, some of those parts are not very well defined, or I've lost one or whatever. I wanted to know where my donor boxes were, and I found quite a few of them. One of them was the Frauhof tanker, the semi-trailer from AMT. Here it is. I have it on the bench. And just to demonstrate that it is in fact the part, if you go to this shot, you'll see it here. Let me see if I can get closer for you. I don't know if I can, but let's see it. Yeah, I think we can, just a little bit. So if we go, come on. There it is. Ta-da! Look, there's the part. There's the part right there. No, it's got a couple of pieces on top of it, and I think those are in this kit, in the tanker kit. Because look what I got. Here it is. Now it is in chrome. It's got to be, it's got to be obviously stripped. But there's the part. there is the part. So it absolutely did come from the tanker, absolutely. And there are some other parts in the tanker kit that are identical to the parts on this build. Thrilled I have it. I've also got a couple of other kits. I've got some tanks and some other things from Hasegawa, from Tamiya. And so as we go through, I'll be looking at those. I've even got some tank treads, so I'm praying that those work too. But it is exciting to know that we've actually got the donor parts. Now, there are a couple of kits, I will emphasize, that are impossible to get. We don't have them. If you can find them, they are asking $600-700 for those kits. That won't be me. But we've got incredible reference material here. We know where our references are. We know our details. And I'm just absolutely thrilled. So we're just going to keep going here and continue to work on the details. I have been thinking about the base. I do have a couple of ways to go. You can see it behind me on what I think will be the final base. I don't know if I want to actually drill into this, pull an acrylic, put a pan of ice in it, and I don't know. Now I can get a much sharper angle with the pan of ice. There's no question about it. But whether I actually commit to that at this point, I don't know. I don't need to at this point. Okay, thrilled you're with me for part 2. No more bloviating. Let's dive in and put some detail on this pod. Okay. I'm trying my best to break everything down into its smallest parts and just slowly follow one panel, which is what we're doing. And so as I do that, I will call out the parts that I'm using. I don't have the exact name of these parts, and I do not know which donor kit they came from. That's what I was kind of hoping to have with this kit. You know, a chart that identifies the part. This is the part, this is the donor kit, this is where it goes. That obviously would have been a lot of work, and we didn't get there. Something happened with the whole sort of design phase of this. It clearly was an awful lot of work, and I don't know the exact history of this, but I have a sneaking suspicion it wasn't a pleasant experience. I can see why for a lot of reasons, but hey, we're okay. Oh, also wanted to quickly share, this is my official final way I'm going to display this model. I found this on Amazon. It is a wonderful piece of just a little step frame. It's very clean. It holds this perfectly at a very nice angle, and the beautiful thing about it is you can turn it. If you look here, you can turn it and tumble it and get it exactly how you'd like to display it. So, and you'll be able to see top and bottom. So that's a result. Okay, let's dive in. Here's where we are. And I'm going to zoom in on the bit that we're concentrating on here. Now, forgive me that I can't get it any clearer than that. But that's where we're going to start. And the first thing that has to go down is this little triangle here. It's going to sit in this notch. And it's this piece right here. And that's the piece that we're going to put down. I'll show you that in the close-up camera here. Let's see here. Here it is. Coming into view, here's the part. So if you're playing along at home, this is the part that you need to find, and we're going to put it in that triangle right there. Now, I am noticing as I'm picking this up, now I'm doing my best to make these as crisp as I can, but as I hold it up to the light, and my eyes, as I said, are not terrific, but as I hold this up to the light, I did notice that I had just a little bit there. There, I think I'm good now. But I just want to get these as clean as I can. And why not, right? Okay, so we're now going to install this piece right here, and it, believe it or not, it fits absolutely perfectly. That's where it goes. So that's the part we're going to install now. Okay. Okay, the next part up is this part here, and I'll put it into view here for you so that you can see it. There it is. That's the next part that's going in, and we're going to place it where it belongs. So we're just going to, I'm going to have to get this lined up correctly here. And it'll be like that. And then we've got the next part, which is this one. There it is. And that's the part you're looking for in your arsenal. Now, full disclosure, I could get one of these wrong. I don't know. I'm doing my best. And I am really studying and scrutinizing every photo that I have from my ILM books and from other sources. So I think I'm correct. If I'm not, hey, you know, we just won't tell anybody. We'll keep it our secret. Okay. Next piece up is this piece, and it's going to go across. It's going to go across, and it's going to sit right sort of over the top of what we're doing here. Now, the interesting thing about that is that it's hard to tell, but I do think that it tips just a little bit. So I'm gonna do my best to get this lined up. Like that. It's pretty good. Now, it's not exactly perfectly centered, but the part isn't that I'm looking at. So get a really nice coat of our duper color gray just to sort of get everything unified, and then we're going to go to our insignia white, and then we'll go from there. So everything should come together. Okay, next part up is, let's zoom out and let's go for the parts that sit on the inside of this top and bottom. So to sit right in front of this piece here. There she blows. It's going to sit right there, and it's this part. There it is. And we're going to get that on. So we're going to orientate that correctly. And it does orientate correctly, so that is a good thing. We'll get a little bit of our CA there, and that part belongs there. And then there's a corresponding part on the other side. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this part first. There is a a circle, and that circle is going to live right here. It's going to live right there. So we'll go ahead and it hugs. It appears to hug the top of that. So I'm going to go ahead and try to make sure this doesn't fly off. There we go. That's where that belongs. Then we've got the next part up is this part on your playlist. There it is. And that part right there belongs on the inside, on the inside of this, and it wants to sit flush, so it's going to drop. I'm going to drop it right in on the next to it. So we're going to put this part in, and we're going to orientate it straight up and down. Okay, let me just help that a little bit. There. And then I've got another piece. Now this is where it gets a little hairy because I'm flying a little blind. So I've got to find the piece that orients here. And I'm looking to try and zoom in here. And that's the bit I'm looking for. It sits on the outside of this and it connects up to it. And it appears to be a little post. So we continue to parallel everything that I'm seeing in this picture. And I'm seeing also that I've got to get this part here at the bottom in the center. If you notice here, this part is going to be actually down and off the pad just a little bit. It could potentially be there, but I don't think so. I think it has a little bit of a gap, but I'm going to drop it to here. So it needs to go here, but we've got to remember that we're working on a piece, and it's quite a large piece, and it's going to sit, basically it's going to sit something like this, and follow this line right here. So that's the next hurdle we're going to have to get over. So I'm working on that now. I'm heading that way. And I've got some parts. I've got to get some pipes that belong here. Now it's not clear to me. I've gone through all of the pieces, all the little pieces that I have, and it's not clear to me just exactly what that is. So I'm flying a little blind on those pipes. I've got what I think is a contender, and it's this piece here that I'm sort of cleaning up. It looks pretty good, but I think it just sits. I think they just sort of sit like this. I'll show you the part up close. Here's the part I'm talking about right here, and I'm referring to these two little pieces, and I believe they parallel the two side pieces. That's what I believe they do. So I'm gonna actually just clean these up, and I will apply these. So I believe it's gonna sit right about here, like that. So I'm gonna cut those off, and let's put those on. And that gets us to this section here. So I've got to find the cup. It's a cup, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, it's this part here, and it's going to sit in this section. Now there's a couple of plates now that are going to sit around this, and so I just have to figure out where they go. So we're going to do that first. This is step one. There are 3 distinct pillars that make up the 3 individual sides of the escape pod. They run along these lines and they parallel these elements here. And they are in this close-up here. So you've got your cylinder, your outside cylinder, your inside disc at the top, and then you've got this mechanical piece at the bottom. That is the orientation of it. I've got to glue those together, and they are then going to situate themselves in these elements here. Now I need to get those glued up because I'm using tracks that I picked up online. It's a Panzer Kampfwagen 3. And it's STK FC .141-1 Ausfuhr. That's the kit. Now, there are several other greeblies in here that I can see, that I have seen, that are absolutely correct. But it is those tracks that we're using. Now the reason why I'm using them is because they're fresh, they're clean, and they're not molded on the back, so I don't lose any of those elements. What I do have to do, I just noticed I missed is I trimmed off all the rubber from the back, obviously, so that they would sit flush as they're supposed to. And what I'm working on right now is I'm working on how far this track has to travel under the disc, so that because I only have 2, and I don't believe I need more than 2. So it's going to live sort of next to this, and I believe I've got enough. Well, I'm going to mark it and see just exactly where I am and make sure that I have enough to go around here. But you can see it's going on nicely. And what I like about this Gorilla Glue, I'm sure you've all used it or seen it, is what I like about this is it has a really strong bond very quickly. And you got a little bit of working time, and so I like that. I like that aspect of it. I've sort of laid it down in such a way that it finishes under one of my circles. So that's a good thing. So there that is. Let me just, usually I like to clean the nib of my glue off with plastic. But anyway, there you go. That lays down quite nicely. And of course that's under a greebly, so that will disappear perfectly under the greeblies. So I'm just sort of going around here to make sure that everything is level, and it is. And this will dry quite quickly. And I think once that's glued in and it's painted in, it's going to look really nice. So the next thing I have to do is I've got to attach, I'm going to start attaching these pieces here, and I'm following along on my photograph here. Now So I've triple confirmed that this is the way this is going to go, and this has to go on first before you can do anything else. Now, I pre-glued these, so there's two parts in here. There's a what is most likely part of a wheel from the tank, and this is most likely part of an axle. That's what they appear like to me. And these came from, I believe these came from one of the tank models. And again, I'm going to do a little more research as we go here. Now, this has to sit in here, and it has to sit relatively flush. Now, they've given us this indentation, but not done the best of jobs, so I don't know just exactly where that's going to sit. But I have a suspicion that we can just only glue around the top. Let's see here of it, because I think the undercarriage here, unless I was to actually start doing a whole lot of sanding and drilling that I don't want to do, it looks like it's just going to catch the very edges of that. And since I know that, I'm just going to go ahead and put my glue at the very edge here. Okay. Now we're going to basically detail out this little piece here, this center bar, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here. Here it is. Here's the part that we are working with, and it has a hole down one end. This end has the hole in it right there, and that hole orients upwards, as you can see in this photo. Now let me zoom out so that you can see how that orients. So it's going to orient with the greeblies sort of sitting in the center of it, if that makes sense. And I've got those greeblies ready to go. And let me show you those. They are here. There's this one. And there's this one that has an offset to it underneath. There's this one. And there's this one. So if you're playing along, those are the three parts you're going to need. And they are going to sit, they're going to orient themselves on this bar here. Here's our bar. And I believe the bottom of this hole here is going to orient towards this piece here. So it's going to sit essentially like that. That's how it's going to live. My pole, or it looks like a girder, and that's going to sit here. Now, interestingly enough, you can start to see from the production photos where things start to line up. Now, I know that there's a wing that sits in here. There's a couple of wings, and you can see them, but they sit further down. So I just need to make sure. So I'm going to get let me grab my wings here. The parts are going to line up with it. So I have to, and they're gonna sit in here. So I have to make sure that I've got room enough. So this has to come quite far over. It's not going to be centered where you think it is. And nothing is parallel on this, or we're dealing with a curved surface. So I have to just sort of find where that is. And I'm gonna have to sort of just, now these are nice and soft, so they'll lay down, but they just need a little cleanup. I'm going to sand these down just a little bit. I've noticed that they need a little bit of sanding. This is kind of how it's going to sit down. And so that's what I'm working on. And they're laid down in such a way, which is really interesting. Now, I've got several of them because they're on every there's three of them, and I do have enough to make three. But if you're following along in the playbook, they need to be square like this. So they're not square to this angle. They come out at an angle, but they are square to this angle. Let me get you a little closer here. They're square, so they're, in other words, it looks like this. So it's flush to this, parallel to this, but not at this angle. And then this piece sits there like this. So what I have to do is just get this to where I can get it as close as I can to the center here, and then glue this on. So what I'm going to do is because I know where this needs to sit, I'm going to lay this part, I'm going to put this piece down first. Now I might be getting myself in trouble doing that, but I think that's the correct way to do this. And then so now that we've got these two parts in, whoever was putting this together at ILM, they were obviously looking at geometry and how things flowed, because this piece, now I've got two options for this. I've got, this is the printed part here, and it sort of looks like that. And then I've got the actual original part, which looks like this. It's quite a difference. So I'm going to go with the original part. And when I say original part, I mean this is obviously the sourced donor greebly. But it has an awful lot of detail on it, and so I'm just going to go ahead and use these when I can. But the point I wanted to make to you is whoever at ILM was in charge of putting this all together, they were looking at geometry, and they were looking at curvature, and they must have looked at these parts and thought to themselves, well, that's a lot of fun. So they went ahead and they found themselves sort of opposing parts. And I want to show you. So they found this part and they thought, okay, well, that looks pretty good like that. I think that, no, that's not correct. Excuse me. I need to find the opposite part. There it is. So this looks pretty good like this, they must have thought to themselves. And then what they did was they had this part, which looks like another piece of a tank pulley system, and they laid that right on top of this part like this. Let me get my tweezers. And so they started to just look at form and shape and realize that they could actually put something to, they were going, oh, well, that looks like it belongs, so we'll do that. So you have these wonderful layers that are starting to happen. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and get these parts installed now. And we'll put that down like that. So that's correct. And then I know that the other part, which is which I don't have any names for these greeblies, I'm sorry, I'm just sort of going here, it actually sits on top of it like this. Now it is supposed to sit flush with this part here, so I may have goofed. It might be over too far. In fact, I think it is. Okay, I'm gonna have to see if I can pop this off. I think I can. Let me get my trusty, pop that off quickly because it hasn't set yet. This glue that I'm using, interestingly enough, is not setting as quickly. So I do have a little bit of time, but I want to get this. I do want to get this in first, I think. So let me put this part down a little bit, I would imagine. But what I'm going to do is help that along here. I know it needs to sit there, so I'm going to just give it a little bit of kicker to hold that in place. And that is like that. And then you need the opposing piece over here, which allows you to line that up, and we can go ahead and install that. And that just sort of butterflies across from this piece like this, like that. And then the next thing that has to happen is the opposing wing has to go on, and that's going to it's going to just follow along like that, and it leaves this sort of wonderful shape here. Everything, this glue is really good. And it's really good. Okay, bingo. And that goes like that. And there we go. And so you can see all of a sudden this is starting to take shape. And let me show you that a little closer. You can start to see it's forming this very distinctive pattern. And so we're really getting along. So if I was to perhaps start all over again, and if I had this kit at home, there is an argument to be made that you would cut the top off and you would create some kind of an internal stabilization process. I've seen that, you know, with a rod and perhaps some metal plates or stuff, just to make sure that this doesn't do anything wackadoodle. But if it's kept at a reasonable temperature and it doesn't suffer extreme heat or extreme cold, this model should be fine. But those are definitely some of the things you think about. And again, you know, the Panavice is another way to go as well. But I think for my purposes, for my collection, where this is going to be displayed, and I will show you it in its display moment when we're finished, because I think it's important to see it in situ with all the other Star Wars kits, or models, I should say, studio scale models that I built. But I'm liking this presentation because it shows me everything that I want to see. And I can also pick it up and I can rotate it and I can change the angle of view. So I like that. Okay, I'm going to continue to plow ahead here. And you can watch me quietly because I'm not going to open my trap. Let's carry on. Okay, we're doing some sleuthing, and I've sleuthed. So there is a piece that belongs between this actuator and this actuator. And if you are brave enough to go looking for it, you will discover this piece in your arsenal. If you are building this and you have this kit, you will see you have this part. And this is the part you're going to need. But you're going to have to remove this back portion here. That comes off. And then we're going to slip it right in here between these two actuators. So I've got this absolutely correct, and I left myself, just by pure luck, enough of a gap to slip this in here and slide it over here. And again, you can see when the aesthetic is working, when it starts to sort of all come together, you go, wow, they literally were just looking at all of these spurs and going, oh, okay, well, that kind of sits in there and looks like it belongs. So that's what they're doing, and that's what we're doing. So I feel like I'm channeling ILM at the moment. It's a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and put this part on. The next part up is this little actuator. And it's going to sit right across this piece here. So I have cleaned it up to the best of my ability. And again, once again, it's one of those situations where whoever was building this at ILM was just playing with parts, just playing with little greeblies and trying to figure out what, you know, what would make sense where. And they came up with a pretty good formula, so, you know, why mess it up? It sits over there perfectly like that. And there you go. And we've got one other actuator, which we've got for the other side, but it doesn't have this part. It just lays like this. and it sits across from it. So I'm going to, what I'm going to do is, since it doesn't do that and this isn't lining up, I'm just going to go ahead and trim that part because it doesn't appear, it wants to sit flush there, but I don't want it to extend out any more than it has to. And it doesn't appear as though that's what happens on this part. But as I'm looking at it, I'm realizing that this part is just been trimmed a little bit. So that's what we'll do, just to kind of make sure that we can actually seat that nicely. And we'll go ahead and lay that part down, and that's pretty good. There we go. Like that. And that sits like that. So there were two additional actuators that are the same as these, except they're laid on their sides, and they went on either side of the disc. And then there were a couple of small pipes and details that you can see that I found. They are in the parts bag. They are a little cruder because they're so tiny. I did go through my Panzer Kampfwagen set and my Morse Carl set. I don't have it. There were 3 or 4 other donor kits that I'm aware of that I just don't have. So what I'm doing is I'm approximating what I can. But I think you'll agree, for the most part, we've done a pretty decent job. And again, once this has got a complete coat of the primer on it and everything is amalgamated, we're going to start to look a little cleaner. Okay, so I'm going to, this is obviously an awful lot of detail work, but I'm going to continue now with the paneling. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to rotate the ship, but I'm going to do it after I worked on this section here. So now, and I'm just going to complete one section, and then we're going to leap ahead just in the interest of time. But I will show you, I mean, obviously you've seen me put down quite a few of these greeblies and pieces, and it's a lot of intricate work, but again, a lot of fun. Just to continue here though, just to sort of finish this up, there are 2 plates. There's one that I actually had to fashion myself, and that will sit here. It goes here like thisage, and then this piece lays down over it like that. So we're going to go ahead and get these pieces down right now. There's an awful lot of sort of detail work that you realize is, some of it is deliberately symmetrical, and other parts are not. So I'm taking some liberties, and I'm adding some of the details from some of the actual donor kits that I was able to get on eBay, because I think that they're punchier and they're looking a little just a little stronger. But let's look at what we've got. So I can let me just clear the way here and pull this towards us. There we go. And so we've got left and right of the ship, and I'll show you this in this form. Let me pick it up and show you, so you can see. I mean, it's looking a little wackadoodle right now, obviously, because it has no harmonic sort of sensibility to it. It doesn't make any sense, but it will once it's all painted. I'm excited about being able to actually get into the weathering of this. We're working on plating too now. The nice thing about it is this part here, this where we chose to begin, which was a good idea because it's not symmetrical, so it's we don't ever do that again. We've got a lot more plating to go now, and we've also got engines to put on. We've got our main engines, which will go down this end, and we're going to work on that in just a minute. But what I want to do now is I want to start figuring out where the plating goes. There's plating that goes all the way around the top here, and but it is not all the way around. where there are the thruster engines, or I suppose a your directional thrusters, they have a gap, so we've got to pay attention to that. So, well, I've made a couple of discoveries, so I thought I'd share. A lot of these pieces, these laser cut pieces, are too small. So I'm going to have slightly larger gaps than is correct. But that's what I've got, so that's what I'm going to deal with. I'm a little all over the map, but it's for a good reason. I'm realizing that I can get better geometry if I know where things exactly go. So in other words, here is I've started to add these plates to the top. The reason why I started that and going this way is because in the studio model, this plate lines up with with just on the inside of the curve of this frame. And then on the inside here, there is going to be a blank, and because there's a directional thruster, and those directional thrusters belong above these, so that's how we know where those go. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm just going to go ahead and keep going, because as I'm looking at the production model, I can do at least one more without getting myself into trouble. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get these. I'm starting to get these on. Unfortunately, these are cut too small as well, and I've also noticed I'm missing a bunch of parts. There is for instance, the black mylar window should be in either a laser cut sticker or something for me. Wasn't here. There were some roundels or some parts that belonged under the engines, and they weren't there. So, you know, the kit. How would I know? I took inventory by looking at photos and getting as much information I could, either from Jason Eaton or from the information that I got from Chris over at Golden Armor, and anything I could glean, of course, from Sculpting the Galaxy book, which has been incredibly helpful. But that's the only way I can figure out what parts actually go where and how many of each I think I need. So that's the only way I'm doing it. But, you know, that's what happens when you're dealing with a garage kit from a company that went out of business. So I don't know. It's a bit of a drag, but there you go. That's what we're working with. But things are coming together, and I think if I hold it up for you, you can start to see that it's all amalgamating. So anyway, as I get these thoughts, I'm just sort of recording them and memorializing them, because I think it's important for anybody who wants to sort of give this a shot and finds themselves in the same situation that I was in. Hopefully this will be helpful. For the rest of you, hopefully it's interesting that I've got to fill in these blanks. This blank and this blank have to be filled in. So that's the epiphany. The epiphany is, oh, well, they have given me card, and they have the notches out. No, I did see on Adam Savage's his channel that he's got nippers, and these nippers are really cool. They nip perfect little squares. I haven't sourced one of those. But boy, the day I do, I'm all over that like a cheap suit, because they're fantastic. They just create these nips, and that is the Star Wars Signature Universe panel. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these panels out and drop them into place. But I wanted to memorialize this for any of you out there who have this kit. I'm just trying to sort of give you my basic knowledge base. I'm sure you've got much more knowledge than I do, but if you don't and you need help, I'm sort of giving you a heads up. This is what to expect. You're going to have to cut these to size, and they will drop in, and they're not going to be perfect. There are elements that just don't work, and so a little bit of it is going to be slightly different. But again, and I'll say it 1,000 times, once we've got a primer coat on this and it's all been sort of unified and we start to build up the paint, this will all make a lot more sense and it will look very cool. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put these paddles in. Progress report. I'm continuing to add the layers to this. We've put the rear engine ports on. Now there are two engines that are going to go onto this, and they're smaller engines, and I have those. So we won't do those just yet because we'll install those after we've probably got a coat of primer on this. But it's hard for me to sort of give you a 360, but everything is coming together, and I'm starting to work on the engine base now, and that's got quite a bit of a process to it. Now, I am using the Golden Armor engines, and I've got a couple of them here. And I just need to make my holes bigger here. So I've got to just make these holes a little bigger so these will slip in nicely, because I'm going to detail these out before I put them in. It's going to make my life a little easier because I'm going to give this a coat of matte black before after I prime it. And then I'm going to put my insignia white over that, and that's my base for everything else. But in now looking at all the parts that came with the kit, I assuredly am missing a few parts. There's no question about that. They're definitely missing. So I'm augmenting them with the Golden Armor STL files that I purchased from Christoph over at Golden Armor. His revised kit is pretty darn good. He's spent quite a few years refining it and cleaning things up. So it's definitely worth checking out if you're interested in this kit. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just finish all this detail work here. And what I'm going to do is we'll just sort of go through this slowly. I'm not going to show you each individual part that I put on, but I'll give you a progression of this, and that should do it. And then there might be a few other details that I need to go through, but there's some side parts here that I have, and of course there's my 4 thruster engines that go on the sides. If you look here on this particular shot, you will notice if I zoom in and come down to the right of the picture, you'll see one of the nozzles to the extreme right, and then in foreground you'll see one, and there are 4 of those. And so work continues on the business end of the escape pod. I'm slowly building up the engine compartment with all the various details that sort of entail it. So between the actual reference pictures of the production model and the pictures that I've gathered online, I've been able to sort of build this up slowly, and it's coming together really well. I'm going to actually detail. I'm actually going to sort of prime my engine bells separately. Before I sit these in. I've got a little more detail that I need to do. Some of it can't be done, like the famous cables that came from the classic, the C-Lab, which Steve over at Cult TV Man has just, you can get it from him. It's re-released, and so there are parts of the C-Lab on there, and so. It's pretty cool to see them all laying down here, but I'm very happy with where I am and what I've got so far. So we'll continue to sort of just build this up and get some of the final details on this, and then I'll get a coat of primer on this, and I think that will conclude this part 2. Part 3 will be the final sort of the paint up, detailing, washing, and reveal, because I just I need to get a show out It's been 10 days. 10 days. Now, a lot of you are going to say, hey, Phil, 10 days, I take 6 months. You do. But, you know, the channel is more about getting you to be involved, getting you to get these kits out of your stashes, playing with them, getting some ideas, most importantly, getting you excited about this hobby and getting you building again if you're not building. So anyway, I'm gonna carry on. Okay, so here we are with a complete primer coat on the model, and most of the major greeblies and details are on. At least I'll say they're on based on what I've discovered and found. I'm going to go through it now with a fine-tooth comb just to pick out anything I may have missed. But I don't think I've missed very much. Some of the details I have not put on are because either they're going to be a different color or they're going to interfere with the base coat, and I'll just add them later. But for the most part, everything is on here. There's still a ton of little details that should go on. Let me show you a couple of things here. Let me see. Here's a good way to look at this. So I think that everything is on the hatch end. I've got my engine bells ready to go. I've been priming bells. I just haven't primed these two yet, but these are on. And then as I turn this to you here, the sort of the major detail part that obviously this sort of the signature piece, everything is on and it's looking really good. There are not blanks, but there's less going on the other side of the model, but I mean there's still an awful lot to do. And of course here on the engine side everything is in that I need to get in, except for some of the larger parts that cables that will have to go on later, because now I need to get a matte black coat on this, and then I'm going to give it an insignia white coat to bring it all the way back. But I thought this would be a really good place to end part 2. Awful lot going on. I tried to show you as many of the details as I possibly could, just to sort of, if you're following along or you want some more information. But honestly, guys, I've guessed on a lot of stuff. I've tried to get as close as I could, but I've guessed on a lot of stuff. But I'm very happy with it. And I think when we come back for part 3, the final part of this build, we will have gotten our base coat on this, and we're going to go to town on detailing it, because that'll be the fun. So that's what we'll do. We'll spend an entire episode on painting it and detailing it. But I think that's where we're going to call this one. Hey, if you want to get a hold of me, I'm spruverse@gmail.com. I post most days my In the Weeds, what's going on the bench, and some other thoughts. That's at Spruverse. You can buy me a cup of coffee. That link is on my channel page, and that's of course for charitable builds, as well as my World of Wayne link. That's for all my merch, and 100% of the proceeds from my merch go directly to charity, so it's a good cause. Go ahead and pick yourself up a shirt. You'll be glad you did. But as always, I wish all of you, please, be safe and be well. Build something! And I'll see you next time when we will finish the escape pod from Star Wars. Take care, everybody. Be well.